Hi, I'm Brian Levy. I am the host of Manchester Living Podcast, and I'm really excited about today's show. The purpose of this podcast is to help people navigate the crazy maze of elder care. On the last show, I mentioned there's a lexicon of terms on our website, manchesterliving.com. Please check it out. And also, I'd like to get started today with a new and noteworthy clip of a video that a caregiver of ours at Cambridge Caregivers took of a client driving. So if we could cue that, please.
She thinks that something is going to happen. Oh no, she's running the light. She's running the light. No. There's cars coming. Oh my God, no.
That is something that really happened here in Dallas, Texas. And it's a real hot point for me. And I want you to know it is okay to take the keys away from mom and dad. There's liability, there's lives at stake, there's a legacy, and there's also a lifelong of guilt if your loved one hits someone. Reasons why people don't want to take the keys away is inheritance, legacy, and they don't want to upset the apple cart. So there's plenty of ways to skin the cat. If you don't want to take the keys away from mom and dad, call clergy, call a social worker, call the police, call the fireman, or call me. I've done it before, and I'm happy to do it again. But that is a great example of why you take the keys away from mom and dad. Even when you think they're okay to be driving, they may not be. Let's jump right in. Today's topic is communicating with people with dementia, and I'm excited to have my guest, Sandy Greenberg. Been with Scottish Rite Hospital for 19 years as a registered nurse, and recently, as of a little over a year ago, you're now the Director of Nursing for Manchester Living. And Brian Harmon, a physical therapist and business owner of Nexus Home Care. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Let's jump right in. Tell me a little bit about communicating with the elderly. What are some of the pros and cons, or do's and don'ts, if you will? Sandy?
Just speaking to them on a one-on-one basis, touching them, grabbing their hand and holding it gently. Eye contact is huge. I mean, it just makes a huge difference if you just can look into their eyes and really speak to them.
Great.
Grab their attention.
I think one of the things now is, and this has always been an issue from before, but especially now with coronavirus and we're all masked up, it's really important to kind of sit knee to knee and face them, and use nonverbal cues. A lot of times with an older population, they've learned how to read lips. And so now with the masks on, they don't have the ability to do that. And so using hand gestures, those kind of things, speaking slowly, clearly, I find that I overly enunciate all of my words when I'm speaking through a mask, and I'm a little bit louder to help them do that. The other thing too is make sure that the words that you're saying are short and concise. They're not like these long paragraphs. I tend to be a little more verbose, and so I have to be really conscious when I'm with clients that keep the commands, keep the conversation short so they can understand what you're saying.
And limit distractions as well.
Yes.
We've talked about
Turn the TV off.
Turn the TV off.
Yeah.
Don't cook and talk to mom at the same time.
Right.
Sure.
And I always say you want to know which ear they hear better out of, and always just focus on speaking to them where they can understand you most clearly.
Yeah.
Sure. So being a nurse in our care homes, give me some examples of ways that you communicate with the residents one-on-one that work best.
Okay, it's such a pleasant thing to do. I mean, again, like Brian said, getting on their eye level. I'm constantly, squatting down just so I can see them face to face, touching their hand as you're talking to them. You can automatically feel them just kind of relax with a human touch. Looking them right in the eyes when you speak to them. I never ever want to come up from someone behind. You always want to come from the front because they do get startled very, very easily. And that can totally set them to a different mode of how they feel.
Yeah,
when
that's
you're
great.
speaking with them.
So it's almost, in a way, it's almost manipulative the way you communicate with somebody with dementia, and giving them choices instead of saying, what do you want to wear today?
Yeah.
Give them choices. Do you want to wear the green shirt or the orange shirt?
Right.
Much like you would with a
Absolutely.
top.
It's more of
Right.
just, I wouldn't say it's manipulation, it's more leading, right? You're
Thank you.
going to ask them more leading questions because the implication of that is you're going to get a shirt on. Is it going to be the green one or the blue one, right?
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and you don't want to argue with them. I
Right.
mean, you definitely do not want to argue. We had a resident the other day in a pair of shorts. And I asked the caregiver, and she said, that's what he wanted to wear. So that's good for him.
You know what? It works for them.
Right.
Yeah.
He was comfortable, and they had completely avoided any conflict.
That's a great point about not arguing. The other thing especially with cognitive decline with some of our senior patients or residents is you kind of have to live in their world. If they've got like a narrative that they're believing, it serves you a purpose to try to argue that that's not reality, right? So we had this guy that we used to work with, and he was a very influential engineer, and he was in the process of writing a book. Now, this guy was in his late 80s, had Parkinson's, had pretty significant cognitive decline, but he was convinced that he was writing a book every day. So you know what we did? We had paper, we had pens, and let him kind of believe the narrative. Now, he never picked the pen up to write anything, but he needed to understand from us that we agreed and we believed his worldview, that he was a writer, he was an author, and that helped to create a relationship with him where when we needed him to be able to do things or communicate with or follow instructions from the nurse or the therapist, he was willing to comply because we met him where he was.
Absolutely.
Versus arguing and saying, you're not really a writer.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I preach that daily
Yeah.
to enter their world for our caregivers.
Yeah.
And they'll say to me, but that's not what he's doing now. And I'll explain, it's okay.
Yeah.
Enter their world. They will feel so much better.
He's going to the concert tonight.
Right.
He really is going to the
I mean,
concert.
if he thinks his wife is there and
Yeah.
he'll wake up in 5 minutes, okay.
That's right.
But then guess what? 5 minutes later, he'll
That's
be
right.
on to something
Yeah.
else.
We
So,
had a resident who always thought she was going home back to New York.
I
Yeah.
remember that.
And in the afternoon, and every afternoon, she'd bring her suitcase and she would sit in the same chair in the living room and wait for the bus.
Right.
And we would all tell her that, the bus is coming, the bus is coming. And after a while, it was time to go back to her room.
Yep.
And she,
And how ineffective would that be if you try to convince her she wasn't going to New York?
Right.
Imagine how upset she would be, how
Sure.
just flustered. It would upset the staff. Like the whole thing just spirals out of control.
Just go with
if
it.
you're not. That's
Yeah,
right.
just
It's
go
not-
with it.
It's not. So I think this is. I have a grandmother who's got Alzheimer's, and so my parents initially felt bad lying to her. I'm like, Mom, it's not lying. It's not manipulation. It's not lying. You're playing make believe with your mom to help make the transition easier. That's all this is. It's not lying. You're just trying to help her see through. You're trying to see through her lens to help get her where she needs to get to.
sure. People with dementia get agitated very easily.
Yeah.
And if you can just, it's the kiss.
Maintain the
Yeah.
calmness.
It's the KISS theory. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
Just keep it simple. I read recently where instead of saying, "Hi, Mom, it's Brian," don't use titles. Not, "Hey, Mom, it's Brian, your son."
Yeah.
"Hey, Mom, it's Brian." Just leave it at that. Keep it real simple.
And if they want to know more, they will ask you, because I will have residents say, who are you? And I'll say, my name is Sandy. And then they'll say, are you the nurse? So that some of them will have a memory of that and some won't. But I don't ever just put out there, I'm Sandy the nurse,
Right.
So,
I had a client in my car the other day. I was taking her to get a vaccination, and she's still cognitively understanding her disease.
Yeah.
And we had absolutely the most fun. She kept saying, Am I repeating myself? Am I asking you the same questions?" And I said, "Yes, but it doesn't bother me if it doesn't bother you that I give you different answers." And we laughed and we just had a good time with
Yeah.
it. It depends on what stage of the
Right.
disease they're in,
Right.
but
Right.
you've just got to make light and add humor. So,
and having a good understanding of what stage they are in is very important.
Sure,
for all
absolutely.
caregivers and family members.
From a nurse standpoint, speak a little bit about those different stages and how family members can help act and react to the
Right. I
different
mean,
stages.
it's the beginning stages. It's memory loss, confusion, misplacing things. But as it continues to progress, then you get more physical involvement, more cognitive involvement, and you just have to basically keep up with it. I always tell family members, be on different websites that are Alzheimer related websites and dementia. I'll give them recommendations of books to read, just so they can continue to understand that this disease does progress. And for Susie, it may progress over years, but for Joey, it may progress in 5 months.
Sure.
So you really have to just be on top of it and get to know what's going on in their minds.
Brian, you walk into a lot of scenarios where you may not have a heads up. You may just your home health and you're assigned to this a client and you walk in. How do you assess and what's your reaction to an immediate?
Well, usually I have somewhat of a heads up from either the doctor or the community that we're working with. And so I'll go talk with Sandy as the director of nursing or whatever and kind of get an idea of what we're actually looking for. So that gives me quite a bit of information going into it. So you kind of know what to expect, how much will they be able to retain? Can they follow instructions? Those kind of things. There are some tests, by the way. There's some basic ones like the slums and the mini mental that kind of do give you an idea of what their cognitive level is. There's also an interesting one that a lot of OTs are utilizing now, and I'm going to draw I think it's called it's the Allen Cognitive Test. Have you guys heard of this one before?
I have.
So it's literally imagine like a piece of leather. I think it's leather, and you have them weave patterns like they're threading a needle. And based on how they do it, and I'm not an expert, I've just kind of vaguely seen it done, it computes a score that tells you how much memory retention they'll actually have, or can they actually follow instructions? Do they have to be simple instructions? Can they follow complex instructions? And so those kind of things can be super helpful in determining long term, because that's what we do. We're not looking for, how do I help you in the interim, while I'm working with you. We're also looking at 6, 12, 18 months in the future. Yeah. How do we make sure that you have good systems around you? And so sometimes, because of the cognitive level or because of the functional safety level, that requires other humans in the home. And so if you start to get an idea of where they are cognitively, then you can start planning or prepping for what other kind of human assistance do we need to have, because the brain's just not able to function at a level to keep them safe.
That's
Right.
great.
Safety.
Sandy, you work with a lot of our residents at Manchester Care Homes, but also the caregivers and the families. What's some advice you give the caregivers and families in interacting with their loved ones? With
Well,
dementia?
like I said earlier, just using proper language, proper eye contact, again, the touch, different activities. For example, our caregivers, not our caregivers, any caregiver, you want to, have everyone sit around and play bingo, but not everybody can play bingo. So they might be able to watch. So I'm really very interested in helping them learn how to find activities, and we're working on this, one-on-one. So-and-so may want to take a ball of yarn and unravel it and roll it up, whereas the next resident may actually want to work a puzzle. So we, just kind of finding out what their level is and what they're capable of doing to feel good about themselves.
Yeah, to meet them where they are.
Is exactly what I recommend with families and our caregivers.
That's great. And we talk about, people with dementia, some are verbal and nonverbal. And even though you're nonverbal, sitting at a table or in a den and interacting just with your eyes is still a way to socialize.
Right, and I also feel very strongly about giving them hand massages, brushing their hair. All of that is interaction.
So
it's not just let's do an activity. You have to have this done. Let's play catch with the ball. I mean, those are all great, and we encourage physical movement, but also just little things like they love to get their nails done, their hands rubbed. When we give manicures, we'll say it's spa day. The men are the first ones out.
Isn't that great?
To get this done. So,
that's great.
Yeah, they're rolling right out. So it's.
And I know that we, in any scenario, have a lot of toys that they can touch and play with and feel. We have dementia cats.
And we just ordered dogs.
And dogs. So dogs and
dementia
cats. We're going to have a
dogs.
whole zoo at Manchester.
So this is news for me.
Right.
What's a dementia dog
Oh my
or a
gosh!
cat?
Let me explain this to you. So these are animals that are sensor. They move by sensor movement. So if you walk by the cat, it will freak you out the first time you do it. The cat meows. It moves its paws. It moves its head.
So it's a robot.
Kind of a robotic
Kind of
animal.
thing. Yeah,
But they're
and the
really
cat
furry.
actually
Yes.
blinks.
It's
a little-
like a
do they
real
move
cat.
at all?
They move their paws a little bit.
The head
They'll wag the
turns.
tail, and so we just ordered dogs. So we haven't opened them yet,
Nice.
But
but
it
I'm
is
excited about the
extreme.
dogs.
Freaked me out at first. 'Cause
When I first saw it, too.
nobody told me that cat wasn't real. But when you put a dementia cat on someone's lap,
It's
it's
a calming
very
effect.
soothing.
Very good, strong.
So when you have somebody with
Okay.
dementia and
Yeah.
they're agitated,
Yeah.
it's amazing to put a cat
So
in their lap.
are they labeled as like a dementia cat?
That
like
is what you order that
for
online.
on
dementia cat?
Dementia
Amazon?
cat.
Dementia
No
cat.
kidding.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also
That's
baby
fascinating.
dolls. We were very, very big on, but the older women, they really love to hold that
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah.
So we
That
also,
I'm familiar
we're,
with. Yeah.
big on
Dolls.
the baby dolls.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's
Fascinating.
just whatever you
Wow.
can do to help them
Okay.
feel
Sensory, as you medical people would talk about, is,
Yeah.
is really important, whether it's touch, taste, hear. I read recently about smell with people with dementia, and find familiar smells, whether it's, if somebody was a baker, you bake cupcakes.
Yep. There's a guy who is I think he's either the speed reader or he's one of these guys who remembers all of these digits, right? You give him 1,000 digits and he can remember
Yeah.
it. And so in one of his classes or one of his lectures that I saw, he was talking about how the brain links the best way to create memories or recall memories is to link to emotion. So he recommends, like if you're in college and you're studying for whatever, you're calculus exam, if you are studying while you're cooking brownies or something that has a smell to it, all of a sudden now you're linking an emotional hook into that memory. So to your point, I think that's why if you have those similar smells, they're going to harken back to, or I remember being in the kitchen with my kids cooking these things. So that's where the smell comes in.
They're all
it's the
connected.
emotional
Right.
hook
Yeah.
to a previous memory.
I 100% agree with
Yeah.
that. Even like doing manicures for them, they smell the nail polish.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
noticed that with some of our ladies. Like they'll smell it and go, "Oh, and I'm getting my nails done. I'm so excited." I mean, definitely
Yeah.
triggers that sense
that's
for
cool.
sure. Yeah.
Senses are fascinating
Yeah.
to me. They really are. They're
Yeah.
interesting. So this brings us to a point of the show called The Nugget, and I'm excited to show you guys this video. This woman, her name is Marta Gonzalez from Valencia, Spain, and I'll go ahead and cue the video and let you guys watch, and then we'll talk about it. That's a great example of how music is linked to emotion. And, you know, Sandy, we've talked about families Googling the top 20 hits of their loved ones' eras and playing music like that for them, and just to get the reaction to get.
So important. So yes, we talk all the time about when I'm doing assessments, I will ask, what is your favorite type of music? What type of music did they listen to when they were younger? If I was going to play something that would make them feel really good, what would it be? And they can give me all these examples. I'm a big fan of headphones for distraction when they are being distracted by so many different things, putting headphones on them and just playing whatever music it is that they love, and they can completely relax to that.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
great.
big fan of music for the
Wow.
residents, for sure.
I will have the full video of Miss Martha at the end of the credits, so you can see the whole video. But I think that right there just shows the link between music. She is completely nonverbal and has full reaction, and was that rote memory of
Yes.
that's great. Anyways, all right, guys, it's lightning round. This is an opportunity for the viewers to get to know Sandy and Brian. Are you ready?
No.
Yes. Brian, who would you play in your autobiographical movie?
Who would play me?
Who would play you?
So my wife finds Chris Evans, Captain America, very hot.
Well, you gotta go
it
with
would
that,
have to be
right?
him. Yeah.
Sandy, you're stranded on an island. What book or album would you bring?
Rumors by Fleetwood Mac.
Very well. Brian, most influential person you are not related to.
Most influential person not related to. Wow. Goodness gracious. I would say every year it probably changes. I would say right now Dean Sullivan from Strategic Coach he's a high-end entrepreneur coach, so I follow a lot of his stuff.
I know you talk
Yes,
about him
yeah,
often to me
yeah.
off air. Sandy, early to bed or night owl?
Early to bed.
Early to bed. Brian, COVID crazy or did you enjoy the isolation?
I'd say a mixture of both. Yeah.
Sandy.
COVID crazy with the kids. Isolation was kind of nice. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sandy,
Yes.
there's a roach in the house. You kill it or save it.
I have someone kill it. and
You
remove
have
it.
someone
Yes.
kill it. Brian, Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Sandy, Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Duh.
Yeah.
Flip-flops in an airplane?
From Florida? Absolutely.
Never.
Flip-flops everywhere.
Never. Disgusting.
Never. Disgusting. Disgusting. Sandy, punctual or tardy offender?
Completely punctual.
Brian,
Very punctual.
last one. if you came with a warning label, Sandy, what would it say?
That I sometimes say things that I shouldn't.
Nice. Brian.
Gosh. Quick start, but lack of follow through.
Oh, wow.
Thanks for tuning in to the Manchester Living Podcast. If you are interested in listening to future shows, feel free to tune in on Facebook at Manchester Living Podcast or online at manchesterlivingpodcast.com or on iTunes. I appreciate your feedback. I appreciate your show ideas. I even appreciate the lady that gave me haircut advice. So it happens. In closing, I've been in your seat. Please don't go back to Google. Just call me. I'm happy to help or guide you to a resource that can. Sandy, if people want to reach you, how can they reach out to you?
Sandy at manchesterliving.com.
Brian?
My cell phone at 321-271-4052, or you can reach me via email at Brian, Brian, at nexushomehealthcare.com.
I want to thank you both for being here today. It's an important topic, and I hope it was helpful to the viewers, and I know that we had a lot of fun. Or at
We
least
did.
I did.
We did.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
Thank you.